世紀の終わりに悪の組織が世界征服に動き出しました。ついにこの巨大な影は東京に姿を現しました。巨大ロボット細菌をばらまきながら破壊の限りを果たして21世紀は来るのでしょうか。
Naoki Urasawa, the author of this wonderful manga, is a god in the realm of storytelling. Not just in Japan, but worldwide. He's won countless awards for his work, countless. His most well-known title would probably be Monster, but I haven't read that yet, so I don't have an opinion on it. But right now, we are talking about 20th Century Boys. I just finished reading this masterpiece of a series, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt, this is the best manga I've ever read in my entire life. No cap. Now, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna talk about Berserk and Vagabond, etc., etc. But I haven't read those yet. I have read volume 1 of those big black books made by Dark Horse or Berserk. And so far it's really, really good. But I can't seem to get my hands on number 2 for whatever reason. It's just nowhere to be found, so I can't continue it. So for right now, it's the best for me at least. You might feel different, but that's just my opinion. And I've read a lot of manga too, so I'm not going off nothing here. And this is your initial spoiler warning right now. I'm not going to spoil any major plot points, but just little things here and there if you don't mind that. Reading this manga, I felt like the story was going to finish every single time I picked up the next volume. But it continued, and continued, and the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, lies, murder, it just got deeper and deeper. The world building is phenomenal, travelling from one point in time to another. One page you'll be reading about a secret clubhouse the boys made in a patch of grass somewhere in 1969. Then the book will fast forward 28 years to 1997, and the stupid little kids club they made will have such a significance to the overall story. Every single storyline or side character connects back to the main plot every single time. Everything matters is all I'll say. Nothing happens by chance or is said to be forgotten. Every detail matters. The characters are so deeply layered so that you can understand completely all their own motivations and tribulations they go through as we progress through the story. It's like Light versus L in Death Note. You can't have one without the other. And spoiler alert for Death Note, when they killed L, the show was over. There's no point in the show. Do you know what I'm saying? And because we jump through time so much throughout the chapters, we get to grow up with the characters. We're introduced to them at childhood, and we know them in their 40s. This is why we understand their struggles and get emotionally attached to their plight. They become family in your head. So when they're sad, you're sad. And they're all normal people. Well, most of them anyway. So everyone can relate to at least one character. The main character, Kenji, versus the antagonist, Friend, is the backbone of this world. The contrast between the two is what makes it so thrilling. Kenji is the central protagonist of the first half of the story, which revolves around his childhood in the early 1970s to present day. He is generally laid back, with an almost reckless, careless nonchalance, and is heavily interested in rock and roll. Kenji works at his family's store, which used to be a liquor store, but his heart is 1,000 times bigger than what it actually is. He's so brave, he will commit to anything if he truly believes in it. Yukiji, Kenji's female childhood friend and former classmate. During Kenji's school years, Yukiji was a tomboy who was able to fight off the bully twins. She's so hard-headed and believes in what she stands for. Kenji and Yukiji had crushes on each other as children, but never really had the courage to confess to each other. She's right now a border patrol officer, working with the Sniffer Dog unit. Yoshitsune, Kenji's childhood friend who created the secret base with him. Ever the nervous, unconfident and self-deprecating little guy of the group. Yoshitsune is also dependable and will answer the call when his friend is in need. Maruo, another of Kenji's childhood friends, was very well fed. He's very dopey and he loves food more than anything else. But when the time comes, he's there to have his friends back, no matter what. Now last but certainly not least, another of Kenji's childhood friends, Ocho. At the beginning of their story, Ocho is missing. Nobody has heard from him in a long time, and he's suspected of doing certain things that I won't mention. But he is a tough, macho, well-rounded man, and will do anything to save his friends from danger. These are just some of the many amazingly written characters. We get to see what makes them tick, and what could drive them to the edge, and do some of the insane things to do to save the world. When I first started reading this manga, I wasn't expecting something amazing. I've heard good things about it for sure, but not to this level. This is the magnum opus of manga storytelling. The year is 1969. Woodstock was happening, and the moon landing filled the minds of everyone on the planet, especially young kids. The dream of the beyond was insatiable. A few young boys by the names of Kenji, Ocho, Yashune, Mario would set out to build a hideout in an empty field, and they would call it their secret base, in which they and their friends can get together to share manga, some stolen magazines, and listen to a radio. To celebrate the event, Ocho draws a symbol for their base that would represent their friendship. He creates a symbol from an arrow hand on a comic that he had seen earlier, and an eye. Anyone who knows this symbol is a true friend, he shouted. Later on, their friends Yukiji, Donkey, and a few others joined the gang. They imagined a future scenario where villains would try and destroy the world, and in which the boys would stand up and fight. This scenario is transcribed in a labelled book they used to call the Book of Prophecy. Eventually the hideout was torn apart by a bunch of bullies, and the gang split up, but not before they could bury all the most valuable items from the hideout in a time capsule nearby, so they could relive their childhood once more when they grew up. This is when the main plot of the story takes place. The N64 had just released, and Titanic had just hit theatres worldwide. Meanwhile, Kenji, a convenience store owner, finding solace in his childhood adventures as he takes care of his baby niece Kana, who his sister randomly showed up one day and left at his feet and vanished, never to be seen again. And his mother of course lives there too. Kenji is reminiscing on his younger years when he hears the news of his good friend Donkey's death. Donkey is reported to have committed suicide. Kenji can't believe it, and he looks over a letter that Donkey recently sent to him, which is weird because they haven't spoken in years. It had a strange symbol on it, one in which he thought he knew anyway. It was on the tip of his tongue, he just couldn't remember where he'd seen it before. Then one night, Kenji and his friends remember they buried a time capsule under a tree in their old neighborhood. When they unearthed it, the same symbol was on the lid. This is when Kenji's life gets changed forever, and he eventually stumbles on a large cult led by a man known only as Friend. Who was Friend? The Friends are a cult-like group. They secretly try and control local and national events to gain a political footing from behind the shadows, and use brainwashing techniques and murder to do so. Kenji learns of a local Friends gathering and goes to confront this Friend figure once and for all. But he just gets made to look like a fool in front of hundreds of people and gets kicked out without ever getting closer to the truth. Things were happening. Things that he remembers speaking about in his childhood with his friends back in the 60s. But that can't be true. That's impossible. How could he have predicted the future so long ago? He was trying to figure out what was going on and what's going to happen next. Then he remembers. They all wrote it down somewhere. The book. The Book of Prophecy. Kenji and his former classmates try to remember who knows about the book. They find even more events unfolding, such as bombings and virus attacks in San Francisco, London, and a major Japanese airport, and they're helpless to stop them. All this culminates to New Year's Eve, year 1999. Kenji and his childhood pals versus a giant evil cult-like organization with thousands of members across the globe. 2014. The Ice Bucket Challenge is in full swing. Frozen Fever is everywhere. Vine was probably the most popular app in the world right now. It's now 14 years after the events of Bloody New Year's Eve, as it's come to be known. Kana, Kenji's sister's little kid, is now a teenage girl who works at a Chinese restaurant. After she tries to defuse some interactions between various mafia groups, she discovers that a patron's friend had witnessed a Chinese mafia member get killed by a corrupted policeman. The mafia member mentions an assassination attempt on the Pope as he visits Japan in the near future. She then finds herself and her associates, one being a rookie cop and 2 drag queens, being hunted by members of the Friends while trying to unite the mafia group to a cause. Meanwhile, all this is happening. We learn of a side story of the main prison in Japan. The prison is on a floating island in the middle of the bay, and people are being sent there left, right and centre for basically doing nothing. We follow a local manga artist who has been locked up for life for drawing something deemed not appropriate for the Japanese public. His new cellmate tricks him into drawing him a picture which is not allowed, and he gets caught and sent off solitary confinement. This is where he learns of a prisoner they call the Monster. He gets talking to the prisoner in the cell across from his and realizes it was him, the Monster, aka prisoner number 3. The Monster, as he's known, eventually shows his face, and it's unbelievable. Ocho is alive and in prison. He's been plotting an escape for 14 years, which he puts into action with his new manga artist prison friend, and they escape onto the mainland in order to find Kana and stop the friend world domination. That sound cool to you? Do you like the plot? Do you like the story? If you're not hooked by now, then you won't be. You definitely are though, 100%. Basically, they have to go back into their past to save the future. The plot essentially boils down to finding out who this friend really is and stopping him from destroying the world, again and again. Friend is the type of antagonist that you feel his presence in the story weighing over the people's head without ever really seeing him throughout the story. We see glimpses of him, of course, but not too much. Well, that's my take on 20th Century Boys. What do you think? If you liked it, like and subscribe. If not, you don't have to. And yeah. Peace.